What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Dual Hemisphere Hangout. I'm one of your hosts, Luke, and joining me each and every week, my lovely co-host, Jake. Jake, go ahead and say hi to the people, my man.
Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? Welcome to another episode. 26! 26!
Yeah,
I said
26. That's
we
pretty
were all
wild.
hyped about 25 last time. I was like, damn!
I know we finally cooled down from our hot takes, and we're like, all right, let's
Friends again.
woof.
We've made
Friends again, friends again.
kisses are made up. Big sloppy kisses, as
Yeah,
Craig would say.
literally after the video call, I called Jake on the side. I was like, I'm sorry, I yelled at you. I'm just kidding. We didn't say that. We definitely are the type of people where we're like, we do not take ourselves very seriously at all about anything. So, but guys, if you can't tell, I do have my hood up for a reason, and to this episode, I think we're definitely going to be touching on Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed Shadows just came out. It's the first big mainline Assassin's Creed game since Assassin's Creed Valhalla that came out like 4 or 5 years ago. They had Mirage in between there, but that was like a smaller game. First big size game since Valhalla. And I'm not gonna lie, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, like thinking, going back and looking back at all these Assassin's Creeds, and I just thought it'd be a really cool thing to touch on. Honestly, one of those gaming franchises that does get a lot of love, but also hasn't. I don't think it's like in the same vein as your like Fallout, your Witchers, your GTA's, your Call of Duties. It's still like everyone knows Assassin's Creed, but I just feel like it also is like one of, not, I don't say slept on, but it's like one of those games that you either love it or you don't really care for it. And I think it's definitely one of those things that was just funny because it talked about that. It's like we have two people on this exact side. We have someone like me who absolutely adores the Assassin's Creed series, and then we have Jake, who's, I would say, Jake, you can answer this question. Probably a little just indifferent on Assassin's Creed as a whole.
Yeah, I'm just a noob, as gamers would call it. Yeah. So my history with Assassin's Creed is very, very short.
Mhm.
So the first game I picked up was Black Flag, and I picked it up
Ooh.
because I can't remember the exact reason why I transitioned to PC gaming. I think I'd just got like a fairly not decent graphics card, but one that could run games at 1080p.
Uh-huh.
And then and then Ubisoft obviously have sales all the time, Steam have sales all
Yeah.
the time. So Black Flag came on, and I was like, you know what? I've got a spare couple of weekends. In fact, I think I was probably unemployed at the time. Um, and I was like, it's like £5, so like $7. And I was,
Hmm.
why not? It had fantastic reviews. Picked it up, played it all the way through. I can't say 100%ed it. I did it almost very linear. I did enjoy the sea
Hmm.
shanties and all of the traversing around the
Wait,
map. I
well,
didn't use fast travel. If there's one thing that I try and avoid when
that's
it's these
good.
open world games, I do try and I don't fast travel a lot. I think I did for like the last final few missions because I kind of explored
Yeah.
all of the map, kind of knew.
Mhm.
I don't know, like the Aztec puzzles. I think is that
Yeah.
what they're called?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and then I was like, you know what? I just want to get on with the story. I don't want to lose track of where I am, because if you're constantly
Yeah.
having to travel, you can kind of forget, like, you get
Exactly what
sidetracked.
the
It's like a
mission
mini
is.
mission pops up on your map, and it's like, oh, right,
Yeah.
I'll go over there and do that.
Hmm. Oh
um,
yeah.
so I did that, and then I have about 8 hours on Odyssey because I love
Okay.
Greek and Roman mythology. I took it at school,
Hmm.
and I thought, you know what? I'll really love this. And I think the start of the game killed it because I wasn't
Yeah.
straight into like combat. It was a lot of like
Hmm.
run around this island. It's a bit. I don't want to say. Yeah, it was boring. It was boring.
Yeah.
It
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
the
No,
start that I expected. And that's about
it's a
it.
fair criticism. That's Yeah. No, I was just, you talked about Odyssey. That's honestly a fair criticism that I hear a lot of people talk about. Is like, yeah, if I remember correctly, with Odyssey specifically, um, there's a lot of story at the very beginning, and really what Odyssey is doing in that first 5 or 6 hours is because it's such a shoot. It's literally the biggest Assassin's Creed game ever. It's just so much stuff going on. It's the first time where they finally like got their feet wet with the idea of like, we're going to make this a big open world game. So it's pretty much just teaching you all the systems, which God, there's a lot of systems in Assassin's Creed Odyssey to get used to if you can, for your sake, not touched it since Black Flag of
Yeah.
all things. Definitely I can definitely understand where you got a slot from. But yeah, no, it's crazy that those are the two ones that I feel like you touched on. And considering that, I feel like also those are the two that a lot of people say are typically their favorite Assassin's Creeds. I definitely, unlike Jake, I have played every mainline Assassin's Creed game besides Assassin's Creed Rogue and Assassin's Creed. What was the Mirage? The one that the second, the last
Oh,
one that just came
the
out.
like the first
Yeah,
one, the biggest. Well, not the biggest, but like the most recent one, right?
the most recent one, yeah, the one that was in between Valhalla and Shadows Where I think from what I remember, like from what I heard from Mirage, it's like they didn't take away anything, but it was like less more like your typical Assassin's Creed where you're just stealthy, and not as big of an open world area. And I think for me, it was just like I think I didn't click with me. So I was like, you know what, I'm not even gonna try it. So I might come back to it. We'll see how I feel. But yeah, I've played every single Assassin's Creed game. I started off with Assassin's Creed 2. Assassin's Creed 2, I joke around with this a lot, but Assassin's Creed 2 is the reason why I have my degree in history. It's actually pretty crazy. The reason why is like so weird to me because I would go through and play the games, and every time I would reach a new area, there's Assassin's Creed. They would load up a little area and information about the area and stuff like that. And I would sit there and read like 4 or 5 paragraphs about where I'm at and stuff like that, and these people. And I just thought it was so cool. Assassin's Creed for me, like I was always good at history, but it made history like really cool to me, and so I joke around and say, yeah, Assassin's Creed is the reason why I have my degree in history. But I played them all, and I have opinions on every single one of them. But I definitely I love the games in general. I think Assassin's Creed 2 is considered by most Assassin's Creed fans, if you've played it, the the beginning of what Assassin's Creed is, and probably, depending on who you ask, probably the peak that Assassin's Creed ever reached. Assassin's Creed 2, specifically the SCO trilogy, including Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and Assassin's Creed Revelations. Um, that is where they definitely, in my opinion, had the best main character storytelling and the best historical. Well, again, these aren't historically accurate games because Da Vinci's not building flying machines for an assassin. But they're definitely a lot of fun little things. There's like definitely like the most historically like to the point like game where there's like it feels like a proper blend. It's not too fantastical yet. And yeah, those games are amazing, man. And it's like for me, that's where I got my start from it. And then yeah, I've played every single one since. I went back and played Assassin's Creed 1, which, good God, I'm surprised they greenlit Assassin's Creed 2 because that game was rough. Assassin's Creed 1, funny thing about Assassin's Creed, I remember reading somewhere, Assassin's Creed was originally supposed to be a Prince of Persia game, and it turned into Assassin's Creed. Because it takes place in like the Middle East area. It had all the beginnings of a Prince of Persia game, though, like a open world Prince of Persia game, and then they changed it to Assassin's Creed. And yeah, Assassin's Creed 1 was really rough. It was a rough game to play. I'm surprised they greenlit Assassin's Creed 2, but yeah, from Assassin's Creed 2 on, it was off to the races, and now, if I'm not mistaken, we have 13 plus mainline Assassin's Creed games, plus probably 20 in total with spin-offs, which is insane.
That's massive. That
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Well, I think that must be it's one of the reasons why I didn't buy in at the start. Being
Yeah.
a younger child at that generation, games and
Hmm.
money weren't exactly intertwined. I didn't have adult money,
Hmm.
so you kind of have to. Like, I would get 2 games a year. I would get one for my
Yeah.
birthday and one for Christmas. So
Hmm.
like you have to pick. And unfortunately, when I was a kid, there was 2 slots that were always taken. It was Call of Duty and FIFA. Um,
Yeah.
so Assassin's Creed would never get on that list. I would buy some
Hmm.
pre-owned games, but back when I was a kid, the pre-owned games were not cheaper. Like
Yeah.
not significantly cheaper anyway. You would
No, they're
expect
maybe like
like to maybe get
5 or
like
10.
yeah, $10 off. Not you'd expect them to be half price, and there was
Yeah.
Steam was upcoming, but no one really had a
Mhm.
gaming PC that could really handle what a
No.
console could have at that point without spending thousands upon thousands of dollars. Um, so yeah, I think the saturation kind of like sold me out, especially because I think at one point they released 2 games at once.
They did. Yeah, they released Assassin's Creed Unity and Assassin's Creed Rogue on the same day, which that's why I never played Rogue because Assassin's Creed Unity was the game that was launching on Xbox One and PS4 exclusively. It was the first like exclusive Xbox One PS4 launch because Black Flag did come out on both generations of consoles. It wasn't made just for the Xbox One PS4. And so Unity was the first one. It's like, okay, this is we're revamping the entirety of Assassin's Creed for Unity. Um, and but they still, for some reason, wanted to release another game for the previous consoles because maybe they. And it makes sense now that you think about it because in retrospective, even though I personally never had to deal with the bugs that people complain about Unity having, um, they were not confident in Unity being a good game because, funnily enough, I remember reading they did not allow for when you review games, you have a time period or a review, an embargo to be lifted where you can post your reviews. They did not let them post their reviews until well after the game had launched. I think they said it was like 7 a.m. Pacific time. And that is not what you do for game reviews. Usually it's 12 a.m. on the dot, or it's 1 to 2 days before the game officially launches. And yeah, that just shows that people they were not confident in Unity, which is why they probably put out Rogue as well because they're already working on. They're like, well, maybe we can hide the backlash between Rogue, but no one played Rogue, and that's the thing, and no one touched it because it was like everyone by then at that point I feel like already had a new next gen console, and they were like, yeah, we'll just play Unity, or we're not playing that game because it looks like it's got terrible reviews. We're just gonna wait
Yeah,
and stay on Black Flag because Black Flag was honestly still to this day
stellar.
probably the funnest Assassin's Creed game that you'll ever have. I mean, you're a fucking pirate. Like it's so cool to
I
this
think
day.
that's
And
what drew me to it because at that point,
yeah.
I think I was looking at it on the Steam like store.
Hmm.
And when you click on
Hmm.
Assassin's Creed, you could buy like the franchise bundles. And let's be honest,
Yeah.
on Steam, those franchise bundles are a bargain. You could get
I
like 4
think
games for $20. It
I
was
think
insane.
I own every Assassin's Creed game on PlayStation. Besides I think 3 remastered because I refused to pay for it because I hated Assassin's Creed 3. But I had the entire bundle. Like I can play every single Assassin's Creed game besides Mirage. And I think I got a bundle for all the games for like $10, maybe 20. I might be lying. I might be maybe $20. But I got six games for $20. And they're Assassin's Creed games, which these are 30, 45 hour, 50-hour plus games. So
Yeah,
yeah, definitely big
it's
good deal. But I'm sorry, Jake, go ahead.
big bagging. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know why. I think it must have just been the draw of
Yeah.
that I'd never played a pirate game before. Um,
I mean, there aren't very many pirate games out there to begin with, so.
no, and it was so it hit the niche, and I was like, you know what,
Mhm.
let's give it a go. Um, I don't know if many viewers will know my YouTube channel or my Twitch channel beforehand, but one of the main reasons why I probably didn't into Assassin's Creed is I don't do stealth very well.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
there is a heavy influence on in the older games on being
Yeah.
stealthy. The whole point of like assassin is that you're not meant to be
Mhm.
seen. I'm not good at
Yeah.
that, which is probably why I went towards Uncharted and Tomb
Mhm.
Raider instead
Yeah.
of Assassin's Creed because they kind of hit the
Mhm.
same spot. They're not really historically accurate. I would say Assassin's
Mhm.
Creed tries to stay true, but adds some
Yeah.
fantasy in, while Uncharted is
Yeah.
like you're chasing lost relics that
Fantastical.
don't
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
And then Tomb Raider is, I don't know if it's this much truth to it, but like it's more puzzles and again
Yeah.
fantasy. Um, so I suppose that's one thing and that's why I would have enjoyed Odyssey a bit more because I think I have
Mhm.
learned in recent days that like the new Assassin's Creed take away from the stealthy aspects
Yeah.
and is more like RPG action games because
Mhm.
at this point now in 2025 no one's got an attention span to be sneaking around.
Be
I
sneaky.
remember at the
Yeah.
time I trying. Do you remember Hitman, the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
garbage at that as well because
Yeah.
similar concept. You
Oh
have to be
yeah.
stealthy
No,
and then take your
if not
shot.
like way more, if not way more important, like stealth was Hitman. Like you couldn't like the second you did something, they're like, oh, we're on to you. Yeah, Hitman was crazy. But yeah, no, I think you brought up a cool point because I think this is where a lot of fans have that divide now. Is because so for me, Assassin's Creed, I fell out. I've like I've played every single game, and so for me, Assassin's Creed has always been I'm an assassin. I want to be able to assassinate, be sneaky, do all that stuff. They were on that train all the way up to Assassin's Creed Origins, which is when they finally opened it up to a bigger open world game. And I think that's where you have your divide. You have your divide between the old school Assassin's Creed fans and then just the I guess the newer school, just more Assassin's Creed fans who like the RPG elements of it. The reason why I fell in love with Assassin's Creed was because of the story. I loved. I feel like I am one of the. I am not one of the rare ones, but I'm very much into the present day stuff and like the mythos behind it because there's so much fucking lore in Assassin's Creed. Like it's not going back in time and playing as this cool badass. There's so much lore in Assassin's Creed, and so for me, um, yeah, when they kind of stopped going away from the assassination part, you mainly took part into being a warrior esque and starting in Origins, and then Odyssey. In the nicest way possible, I refuse to call Assassin's Creed Odyssey an Assassin's Creed game because it's not. You're just a Spartan. There's no assassinating. You can't assassinate people in that game. And you are just a gladiator Roman Spartan in that game. And that was like my biggest negative on it. That being said, there's a lot of mythos that they answer in Assassin's Creed Odyssey to make it feel like a proper assassin, but you're not an assassin. And then they brought it back in Valhalla, and they definitely brought it back in Mirage, and they have continued to bring it back in Shadows. So I think that's the cool thing. Like I think they kind of lost their sauce a little bit in their transition because what ended up happening is because Assassin's Creed was coming out once every year. People were getting burned out of the same formula. Like it was the same thing. You're an assassin. Like you said, you're sneaky, you sneaky, you sneaky, you stab, you stab, you stab. You take over some towers, da 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 da. And it was coming out year after year after year after year. And then they took a break and they're like, hey, we gotta do something new. And they by golly, they did it. And now they've got a lot of cool new fans I think they brought to the table for other games because now an Assassin's Creed game, while it is still you're an assassin most of the time, there's a lot more you can do. You can go in, you have a lot more choice. And I think that was what a lot of people like now is now you have choice. You get to make those decisions. You get to go in. You can be like, okay, I will be sneaky here, or hey, you know what? I don't need to be sneaky. I'm going to go kick the door in and kill all these people. And I think that's where I think Assassin's Creed has done really good. But overall, it's one of those things where they have I think they've divided the fan base and they're still trying to find a way because I think sales, and this is the cool thing we'll be talking, I think we'll touch on a little bit, is Assassin's Creed sales have been low. Like it's to the point where Ubisoft is like almost shutting down, not because of Assassin's Creed, just because their games in general have not been very good. And they're not been selling well. And I think it's because they split the fan base. So I think that's one of the biggest things. I think Assassin's Creed, they lost a lot of people in that switch and they're suffering for it big time.
I think they the whole title, it kind of cornered themselves a bit more. And
Yeah.
when you try and branch out, like assassins were only around in a certain era. Um,
Hmm.
and that being said, you can apply it to stuff like Odyssey or Mirage definitely works. There was
Yeah.
definitely you could see that there was possibly assassins there,
Hmm.
doing like secret missions. You can't really apply an assassin to Roman or Viking or like that type of like combat era
Yeah.
where there was no sneaking around. It was you
Hmm.
turn up with hundreds of thousands of people and be
Yeah.
like, "We don't like you. We're gonna burn your house
Hmm.
down."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, you're
there's
right.
there's no like reconnaissance. There's no. I know
Mhm.
like the Romans were a bit sneaky and they would like send someone in as like a maybe like a preempt, but it wasn't
Yeah,
to the level of I'm going to assassinate the king.
yeah,
It's that wasn't the Roman way of doing things. It was we're going
yeah,
to stomp on you, humiliate you, and kill every person that we know. It's
yeah,
and the Vikings were the same. It's like
yeah.
in Norse
Pillage, pillage,
mythology, it's
pillage.
just it's just we'll just ravage everything. So I think
Mhm,
maybe they could have rejigged the order a little of what the
yeah,
time periods that they picked.
mhm,
Odyssey, fine. Maybe then put Mirage in, um, as
yeah,
like a because inconspicuous type area, and then the newest title, Shadows, that could have
mhm,
come in again. Ancient Japan was definitely surveillance. They were a lot more civilized in terms of
mhm,
warfare and combat. There was a lot more politics involved. I think Assassin's
mhm.
Creed benefits from a backstory outside of combat, where
Yes.
like Valhalla can't really provide that. Um,
Yeah. It definitely is, and that was the thing. Like you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said that. It's just like there's they shoehorn themselves and they are called Assassin's Creed. You play as quote unquote an assassin, and I think what really ended up happening is I think they really wanted to appease the fans and being able to we're gonna take you to whatever part of history you want to go explore in, but and like you said, that now you're an assassin. You're an unnamed assassin of no significance because you're not really a real person. And you're going to interact with these things in an interesting way, which I think it definitely hindered itself because I feel like if they took this concept, I like if they took the modern concept of Assassin's Creed, like the newer games, like Odyssey, Valhalla, like the gameplay, the open world, the choices, and dropped them in those settings, like a Black Flag setting, Assassin's Creed 2 setting. They didn't even try it with Mirage, but dropping it into a Middle Eastern setting. They're doing it with feudal Japan now, which I've played maybe like 3 hours of it, and it's not. I can't really give a proper feeling on it, but the gameplay looks great, but it feels right, and I feel like you could have just it's just they don't fit in those games, and that's why they rely so much on their story and their choices in the games, and it's less you're an assassin. They kind of lost their sauce on the assassin parts in those, at least in Odyssey and Valhalla, where they're in there, but it's not the focus.
yeah,
The focus is you're not an assassin. The focus is you are a Viking, you're a Roman, and in Odyssey's cases, the creed hasn't even been established yet. But in Valhalla's case, you are a Viking and a sibling of yours partners with an assassin, and that's how you kind of work alongside of the assassins, but you're not an assassin. And I feel like, yeah, they shoot their horn. They wanted to make a Viking game, but they're Ubisoft, so they have to put Assassin's Creed on it. And I
yeah,
think that's what the problem was. And I think that's where in line the issue with the gameplay and why no one there's been so much controversy over these last couple games in general, just about Assassin's Creed. Like again, like oh, here's another Assassin's Creed game. It's gonna be a 7 out of 10, and I mean to be fair, most of them have been 7 out of 10s, like the newer ones, in my opinion.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
apart from that, like my sort of Assassin's Creed knowledge kind of just dies off. I think
Yeah.
another like negative thing that from an outsider that's never played before, like you
Mhm.
touched on earlier, is the lore. Um,
Mhm.
you can't pick up halfway through, and I think that's probably another
No.
reason why I probably picked up Black Flag because
Mhm.
there is no ties to that game. It is a standalone. I know it's technically like a
Right.
spin-off, but it's a standalone thing.
Yeah.
It's not like you
You
said with
picked
the
a you
Ezio
picked
trilogy.
you picked a good game to hop off because it's kind of like 4 is again, it's like you said, it's you're a pirate with the backdrop of the assassins. The assassins in the game, you don't really focus too much on being an assassin until like the honestly, like the last 25% of the game is where that assassin storyline kind of picks up. And yeah, that's why Assassin's Creed 4 is typically renowned as one of the people's favorites because it's not so focused on you being an assassin. You're a pirate first, and then you find the assassin's way. And I think that works really well, which is why, like you said, for you, it didn't feel like a whole big theme because they don't really expand on the lore that much. And I think that's one thing that they did well, is because in certain games you don't have to question what's going on because you don't really know. You're like, oh, this is kind of interesting. All right, oh well, that's over with now. But then the people like me who in Assassin's Creed 4's thing when they find a sage at the very end and they lock thing, I'm fucking spazzing out because I'm like, oh shit, this is fucking cool because I know the lore behind it. But to your average Joe who's never played it to them, they're like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, cool. And then they just move on, you know. And I think that they did that so well with Black Flag specifically, and I feel like they don't do that as well with the other games that have come out since Black Flag for sure.
And another thing I've noticed with Assassin's, I feel like I'm just bashing at this point, but like
No,
these are my opinions.
yeah, you've never played them.
Yeah.
You have the right to literally be like, this is why I do not play these games.
I don't think they scale well as well when you're working through the game. I don't know if you felt like that. Like the difficulty never really bumped, or like
No,
I didn't
mm-mm.
seem that there was any difficulty to it in the
Yeah,
slightest. I get that in most story games that is like that.
hmm,
You're more deriving down the find the artifacts, solve the puzzles,
yeah,
but like if we're building up to this crescendo or some sort of like plot twist,
hmm,
I want like the difficulty to slightly go up, challenge me, and
hmm.
I never found that. But maybe that like is a Black Flag thing, or maybe I just over leveled the shit out of my stuff, and then I just
No,
like rolled up. Uh,
no, no. I mean, the thing is, like, a sat, like again, like it's interesting because you nail the nail on the head with Assassin's Creed right now. It's like it's crazy. So let me get my thoughts before I move on.
it's
Okay,
okay.
so from Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 4, there is it's not a difficult game. The difficult parts of Assassin's Creed for the player is the stealth parts, where you're not get engaging in a big brawl with anyone. You are sneaking around, and so the difficultyness of being stealthy definitely goes up per se. But yeah, you nail it on the head. There's no like you might upgrade your armor, you might upgrade your stuff. Assassin's Creed from Assassin's Creed 1 all the way up to Assassin's Creed 4, combat was very linear and very basic. It's there's nothing to combat. You stealth and you find stuff. And then you have the story in the backup. And that's the one thing that people talk about with Assassin's Creed is Assassin's Creed 1 through 4. You played Assassin's Creed for the gameplay of like for 4 the naval combat, and then for the other ones from 1 to 3 the story and really and the settings. Typically no one's playing for the combat because the combat was not hard. It's parry kill, parry kill, parry kill, and hide and bush, stabby stabby stabby, whistle, stabby stabby stabby. And then right around Unity they started teasing the idea of upgradable armor and like level areas where the bosses would be at you'd have to be a certain level to take on certain bosses. So they upgrade that part with it from Unity till Odyssey, because Unity and Syndicate, which are really good, are great games, they introduce that idea. Then Odyssey, they go full in with armor sets. You cannot walk into this area that says, "Hey, you're level 20. You should not go in level 30 because you're going to get one shot at. You're not strong enough to go there. I don't care how good you are at the combat. You cannot go in there." And then it's been progressively like that ever since, which is exactly what you mean. Like it was not the main games were not difficult in that aspect, and now again, Assassin's Creed that whole overhaul where like we need to change stuff, and they've changed it, which to other people's things like that's might be exactly what they wanted, and then other people are like that's not my Assassin's Creed. Why'd you do that? And I think that's the divide that a lot of people
Yeah.
have.
I think they're stuck. They're
Yeah,
stuck. I hope that Shadows is good because
yeah,
I'm a sucker for feudal Japan. Like I love
hmm,
the area, I love the art style. Like it just
yeah,
lends itself perfectly to games. I mean, look at
yeah,
Sekiro. Sekiro was complete
yeah,
mythology, but that it
yeah,
just sword to sword combat in a samurai
hmm,
style is it ticks all the boxes for me. I think there was a game called For Honor that
Yeah,
came
For
out a
Honor was a
while
fun
ago.
game.
That was like pitting all these ages against each other in like some sort of like
Mhm,
combat PvP
mhm.
style. I literally bought that
Yeah,
because I didn't buy it. It was had free trials for ages, because of the samurai
there was
combat. Um,
that was another Ubisoft game, wasn't it? Yeah, it
yeah,
was.
yeah. Um, so Ubisoft know how to do these like combat styles.
Yeah,
I think changing it up would have been a bit nice, but
yeah.
I don't see after this one. Do you where
Mhm.
would you see them going? Like,
Yeah,
obviously you could
so
pick up like random wars here and there, but like, is there
yeah.
any like areas or spaces in time where you think Assassin's Creed can lend itself?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know where they can go. I think they probably could go to India. They haven't really touched on India. They probably could go to Russia during like the Bolshevik Revolution, which again is getting. The thing with Assassin's Creed is that we're getting closer and closer to the modern day. Like we can't only go so far in the future before we're shooting people with M4s and AKs. And so like I think there's certain time periods that they can still go into, but I think we're at a point in Assassin's Creed where there are certain areas that there's just not enough to there's not enough historical significance. Like they could go to Spain and they can do one in Spain during the Spanish Revolution. They could go to India and do one regarding the Indians and when the English try to take over India. Like that'd be a cool time frame like to cover maybe. They could go to China, like properly go to China. Russia. Like they've got certain like there's so much stuff they could go to, but is it interesting? Like, am I excited to go play an Assassin's Creed set in Russia during the Bolshevik Revolution? Probably not. Am I excited to go to India? I'd probably be a little bit more excited to go to India and ride on some elephants. Would I be okay going to ancient China? I think ancient China would be really cool. Kind of going back in time even further. I think that like during the Mongol invasion, I think that'd be a cool place to touch on. They won't touch China for a while because they just drop shadows. They can't go to Asian descent games back to back. That's just not how video games work. And yeah, I was like, do I want to go to Spain? As like as a history nerd, yeah. But do you want to go to Spain? Probably not, Jake.
Seen it
That's
plenty of
not going to be a
times.
yeah, that's not going to be a game where you're like, "Ooh, I want to go back and relive the age of exploration during the Spanish time." Like, there's cool parts they can touch on, but like, how are you gonna make how are you gonna make a big ass game doing that? Which is why they didn't do that with Mirage. It took place in Baghdad.
Yep.
And like it was a smaller map with less stuff to do because it was a smaller area, which I think is like we can only go so far with Assassin's Creed. I think what Assassin's Creed needs to do, and it's funny that I said this because I literally complained about it last podcast. What they need to do is go back and properly remake their games, their good games from the ground up, and make it in a more modern setting. Like, go ahead and remake Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood and Revelations and make Italy, Rome, and that area a big ass map with the same side quests and stuff like that. Don't change the main story at all, but like make it look pretty. Do the same thing with Black Flag, update it because and make it look nice. Like I think that's where they can go, but honestly, I don't know because it's funny to think about this because, like I mentioned at the very beginning, Ubisoft is in a place where they're probably they're going to go bankrupt and they're going to have to shut their doors. They're probably going to get sold. They're going to sell off all their IP to other publishers, and then the other publishers are going to start making those games, which leads it to a pretty interesting thing of like, all right, who's going to touch Assassin's Creed? Which is where I think a lot of people have ideas, but it's like, all right, let's how do we touch again this at this point historical legacy based game that's been around for since 2007. That How are we going to take care of it? And I don't know who wants to touch that, and that's where I'm a little bit like skeptical because I know if I'm a video game publisher, I don't want to touch Assassin's Creed. I don't want to make a new Assassin's Creed game. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole for a while. I'm letting that shit breathe. I'm bringing back the hype for Assassin's Creed because that's the thing. Like, there's no hype around it. Like, everyone's like, "Oh my god, everyone's been wanting an Assassin's Creed in feudal Japan," and now that we have it, people are like, "Oh god, but it's Assassin's Creed." When 5 years ago, I was like, "Oh fuck, it's Assassin's Creed. That would be so cool." And I was like, "Oh, it's Assassin's Creed. It's an Assassin's Creed game." Because what Ubisoft has done as from a game development stuff, it's a Assassin's Creed and most Ubisoft open world games are a bloated mess of pointless shit. Like, go to this viewpoint. Cool. Go to this cave. Get this chest. Cool. Go do this side quest that doesn't do anything with the main story. Cool. Right, go take a picture with a fox. Cool. Like, I'm playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, and again, I'm only a couple hours in, but there's like one thing where they're like, you got to sneak up on nature and you get to paint the scene. I'm like, all right, that's so pointless. Like, what the fuck's that for? Like, I'm not like complaining because I think it adds to the lore of the character, but I'm like, why is this in the game? What is this doing for me? Is there like a armor set behind it, or am I just painting a picture of two rabbits fighting and playing together for shits and giggles? Like, that is what I'm talking about. Pointless, bloated stuff. Where I think that's where Assassin's Creed has strayed. Because I mean, you fucking played Black Flag. There was so much shit to do. Like, you open the fucking map and there's
That
like,
that whole side quest of Aztec was a huge,
mhm,
huge it felt
mhm,
like a different game. Um,
yeah,
like, when you went to go do those quests, because you go onto the islands and they'd be like, I've forgotten what they're called, they would be, like, fully dressed up guys that,
mhm,
like, significantly harder than the main story quests.
yeah.
Um,
And yeah, and Assassin's Creed has a weird story problem too, thinking about it, because Origins had two plots going on at the same time. Odyssey had three plots going on at the same time. And Valhalla, I think, also had two or three plots going on at the same time. They all had the main plot, but then they had two subplots where were just as important. And I don't know how Shadows is going to be, if it's going to be a singular plot, but like, that's also fucking like, as there's the games have gotten too bloated. Like, I've played and beaten every mainline Assassin's Creed, but good lord, it took me years to beat Valhalla. I honestly beat the main part in Odyssey, and then my friend, he loved Odyssey and did it. And I was like, just tell me what happens, because I don't have time to hunt down 50 Cult of Cosmos people to find out the secret of who it is for me to see the cutscene. Like, I don't have there's other games I want to play. And that's the thing. Like, that's the thing about Assassin's Creed, because I feel like I'm super negative on the new games, but a lot of people love those new games though. Like, a lot of people really love Origins. A lot of people really fucking love Odyssey. People are a little bit more down on Valhalla. I personally like Valhalla more than those two, anyways. Personally speaking, because I got to fucking assassinate people again. I don't have to be a fucking brute all the time. But then again, I'm a fucking Viking. Why? I was like, I'm playing stealthy because I want to do that. But am I historically like, I'm a Viking, I'm going to be stealthy? No, I'm a Viking and go fuck shit up
yeah,
and pillage stuff, which is, again, kind of like that weird thing where it took me out of the historicalness of it. I'm like, I don't feel like an assassin, even though I can assassinate people. I don't feel like I'm an assassin. I feel like I'm a Viking playing an assassin, which is not the feel that you want coming from a mainline series of games where you are the assassin and that's what you do. And I don't know, man. Assassin's Creed is so weird to me because I'm sitting here thinking about it, like, as we're doing this podcast, and I'm thinking about everything I read, and I think what I really just miss about Assassin's Creed is I think I just miss a good story with a good villain where there's stuff to do, but it's not overly complicated and it follows a straight path. I'm so glad you get to make choices now, but I don't care. I did not care about making those choices. Like, I did not care in Odyssey if I just chose to kill someone. Like, let me kill them or don't let me kill them. Like, I don't care. Like, just give me a good story, which I feel like is what's lacking from all these games that just came out. The story side of it, because everything else, like, say what you want about most of the Assassin's Creed games up to Odyssey, I'm up to Origins. I think all their stories are solid. Are some stories better than others? 100%. But the storyline is what makes those games memorable for people minus Black Flag. Black Flag is the only session. People love Black Flag because you're a fucking pirate. I'll say Black Flag is the exception to the rule of Assassin's Creed because you're a fucking pirate, and that's cool as shit. And the story was probably very weak, but I love the protagonist, and I also think these protagonists are not memorable. I will say what you will, but I love the protagonists of Assassin's Creeds. Some of them are boring, like Altair, the first assassin, is kind of boring in his game because at that point, Ubisoft didn't know what they wanted to do, so he's kind of like a canvas for the player. Like he doesn't have really any emotions. Ezio, Ezio Auditore da Firenze is my fucking man. I love that man, dude. He is probably one of the most like you put top 25 iconic game characters. He's in that list. He's probably not top 10, but he's probably in the top 25 somewhere. Um, Even though I don't fucking like Connor that much because I think he's a whiny bitch. His storyline in Assassin's Creed 3 is pretty cool, and he's a good man deep down. Edward Kenway is a charismatic motherfucker. I love Edward Kenway. I love his growth during his game from being a I don't give a fuck kind of pirate to be like after he does his stuff, like, all right, taking responsibility for his daughter. And that one scene when he's walking at the very end and he sees all of his dead friends chilling out at their little like pirate cove, like that to this day still gives me goosebumps thinking about that. And then Arno, while people shit on Arno all the time, his story is really cool because he fell in love with a Templar, and that was really cool. And I love Syndicate. People don't give Syndicate the light of day because no one played Syndicate because everyone was fatigued off Assassin's Creed. But Assassin's Creed Syndicate, the one that's set in like 1850s Industrial Revolution in London, like that's a fucking good game. Like that's like the best Assassin's Creed game to date before they switch over to Odyssey when it comes to overall complete package. And then then you go to the newer games and unfortunately those characters because they have such free choices their stories aren't as strong because it's like the player's choice. They're like there's so many different options, but you don't really feel that pull to those stories, which I think is another reason why Assassin's Creed has that divide. And it's like I feel like you have two different games. You have two different game series under the same game name, which I think is just horrible for the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, like the whole like modern day, they've got a great concept because it is, as you've seen, perfectly recyclable. You have the
Oh yeah.
modern day, you go on the machine, you end up in another time, and
Yeah.
that concept can be copy
That
paste
formula is great. Yeah.
into anything. Like you
Mhm.
hit the head, like you said there, is the difficulty comes when you're trying to tell an overarching story, and I think in the earlier games they had this like you could tell when the story ended, it ran out,
Mhm.
and then you've got this overarching modern day stuff that you have to intertwine with all these stories, um,
Yeah.
and then the whole point of like open world freedom is that you can go and do what you want, but if you're trying to push a narrative and build characters you're not going to get that in any type of game where you allow the player to choose. So
Yeah.
you've already shot yourself in the foot because your story is now not continuous across all of the continuous, sorry, over all of the games, and you're trying to overarch this like one big like matrix type thing above all the other games that you kind of have to pick and choose between,
Mhm.
and it doesn't feel natural when characters are added in or like players are added in and then you're trying to intertwine them between games and between like 'cause I think
Mhm.
from a couple of videos I watched, there's like one guy in Mirage that carries over to Valhalla. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know if I've got the games right, but
Yeah,
the,
you got it right.
there's a character in there like that to me breaks the continuity.
Yeah.
Like unless it's explained in the overarching like story of
Yeah,
the modern day stuff.
that one is actually explained the Mirage to Valhalla because Valhalla came out first, and Bassam, the main protagonist in Mirage, who's also turns out to be the antagonist at the end of Valhalla, because of crazy shit. Again, way over the top, but Bassam is a what do they call him? An Isu descendant, as they will, in the sense of like he can live forever, and he's like in Norse mythology. He is a reincarnation of Loki, or he is not a reincarnation. He is Loki because and the mythos of Assassin's Creed, all the gods are Isus. They're descendants of the ones who came before, and the Norse mythology gods are in there. So Loki is Basim, and these guys just don't die; they just stay alive forever. And so yeah, Basim. There is an overarching plot, but it's like such a small part of the story because Eivor's story is like not solely centered around Basim. It's like a cool thing, and he does become the ultimate antagonist at the end. And at the end of the game, you seal Basim away, and for good. But somehow he comes back in the modern day, and there's like so much stuff. It was like they don't know what they want to do, and again, it's like you said, they're balancing so much shit that's the problem. Like you have the overarching present day stuff, then you have the stuff in the game, and then you have the mythos that's also in the game. Like there's just so much going on that it just lacks solidarity, which
Immersion. It
as
breaks the
yeah,
immersion of being in
yeah.
there. 'Cause the one thing that I did, really like about Black Flag was,
Mhm.
probably the lack of the modern day stuff, which allowed me
Yeah.
to immerse myself. Because I feel like when you come back into the modern day, it breaks it breaks
Mhm.
the story, and then you realize
Yeah.
that you're not there anymore.
Yeah.
It's all Matrix type stuff in the
Mhm.
overworld, um, and then there's, like, people trying to guide you through. I maybe that's just me, and I don't like the immersion of it. I would much rather the story
Mhm.
be blocked. So it's like you do
Yeah.
your modern day stuff, you go in, you finish your time travel, or whatever you wanna call
Mhm.
it, and then you come back, and then you can set up the next game, or, like,
Yeah.
set up the story in a way where it's like, "That's not finished, we can return back to that," or, again,
Yeah.
reinvite the characters that you are trying to build in that game, and then be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, well, maybe they might come back or not." Or give someone, like, like the plot twist that people always
Yeah.
like, where, God forbid, like, in the middle of Shadows, you see Ezio come back, and it's like, "Oh god."
Oh god. If they brought Ezio back, I'd fucking be so mad. I'd go over to Ubisoft and punch all the developers in the mouth. It's like, do not mess with my man. He had a poetic death. Um, no, I think that's like the part you hit the nail on the head. The one thing I've learned about Ubisoft and the Assassin's Creed team is they're honestly, in the nicest word, they're a bunch of wussies. They don't like to make a decision because they don't stick with it. Because they got rid of the present day stuff at the end of 3 when they killed off Desmond. And then they went to 4, and the present day stuff was still there, but is very minuscule. And that was like kind of like a teaser for those who wanted it. Like I love that. I ate that shit up. Like going to the present day and going on the computers and reading all the files to see what the fuck's going on. I enjoyed that shit because I really cared about the present day stuff. I'm like, I can't believe they just killed off my boy Desmond. Da 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 da. Um, and then but then they have that in there. But then when they go to Unity, you don't do anything in the present day. You're just a guy who plays a video game and they hack into your thing. And then a syndicate, again, you're just another faceless guy. I'm like, all right, so they're pretty much just done with the present day stuff. Like they're still there, but they're like choosing. And then in Origins, this is where they fuck up because then they reintroduce a present day storyline as you're now playing as Layla, who goes into the Animus, and they bring back all these people, and then Layla has this 3-story game arc, with Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, where I can't remember if they killed her off or she's not there. And then Shadows, you're again now you're just a nameless person again. And I'm like, they don't know what the fuck they want, which is why it's frustrating. I'm like, if you want the modern day stuff, you should have never taken it out of the middle 3 games and then you bring it back. All right, we're going to become an action game. Why'd you bring back the assassin part of your set? Oh, to appease the fans that want it. That's cool. I appreciate that. But stick to your guns and your games. Like, do what you want to do. Like, Assassin's Creed, you'll still sell copies. Like, just because I want to stab people as in my games doesn't mean like I you should have that in there and take away from the fact like, well, I just want to tell a Viking game, but we have to put Assassin's Creed in it, so we have to make you an assassin somehow. I'm like, just make me a fucking Viking. Have the balls like you did in Odyssey to make me a fucking Spartan and keep the mythos and stuff like there and there. That's cool. And have the balls to do that in Valhalla. Don't go back and add the assassination part of it. Like, and so like, it's the thing. They just don't. They're just so wishy washy. They go back and forth of what they want and what they don't, which is the frustrating part about being a fan of the game. Because it's like you want to change and you want to innovate, but then you want to bring back stuff, but then you bring back stuff that fucks with what you're trying to do again.
Yep.
And that's the frustrating part of Assassin's Creed.
I
From
do
a
think
guy
it's
who
the
loves
end.
Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I think it should have been the end at 4, and they should have
Yeah.
rebranded.
Yeah.
Like you say, and that allows them to then rebranch into any other story that they want. I mean, you could kind of keep the modern day stuff in there if you want. You could just call it, what's the name of the machine?
The Animus.
Yeah, you can now just call the game the Animus, and
Yeah.
then or the company, like the name of the company or whatever. And then you could put the like Odyssey underneath it, and then you don't have to have a continuous thing of. But what you can also do is create prequels and sequels to build the characters in that game.
Yeah,
That
and that's
is the easy option for my eyes. Take the Assassin's Creed off, take the print off, make Assassin's Creed or the Assassins and the Templars a side quest. If people want to do
yeah.
it and it's like it's there, it's like right, okay, now you're an assassin and you can do all the sneaky beaky like and do all of that. But then
Yeah.
the moral of the story is that you're building a game, a
Mhm.
continuous flowing game with Assassin's Creed on the side. Like it,
Yeah,
they've got the
and that's what
formula
they've
for it.
been and that's what they've been doing in a sense because it feels like the assassin stuff in the last besides Origins, whereas like the origin of the Brotherhood and what that happens. Besides Origins, the assassin part of being the assassin like organization like concept is such a small part of the overarching story that's already at that point. Like you said, it's like make it. It almost feels like it's side content. Like what I heard about Shadows, this is no spoilers or anything like that, but they say like you don't really get into the Assassin's Creed part of Assassin's Creed Shadows until the very end of the game. Which again is just like, what the fuck are we doing here? Why are we calling it Assassin's Creed? If I'm not
Yeah,
really understanding what the fuck I'm doing as an assassin until the end of the fucking game. Right? Like that's the thing. Like they lay out you're an assassin. Again, the from Syndicate back, they lay out you're a fucking assassin. Hey, you're Altair. You're a master assassin. You're Ezio. Your family is a group of assassins. You're going to become an assassin. Hey, you're Connor. You're training to be an assassin so you can take care of your family. Hey, you're Edward. You're a pirate, but you stole an assassin's robe, and the assassins are very much aware. Hey, you're Arno. You were freed by an assassin, and now you're being trained as an assassin. Hey, you're Jacob and Evie Fry. You're the children of a master assassin. You're already established that you're a fucking assassin in those games. The other games, you're not. You're Bayakasiwa, who's a keeper of the peace for his village, and they end up becoming assassins because they want to take care of people and they want to establish a brotherhood. And that's when they start off the brotherhood, and that's how everything spawns off. That's the beginning of it. Odyssey, you're Alexios or Cassandra. You're the son or daughter of a famous I can't remember the name of the guy, but you're famous Spartan child spawn and da 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 da. You go through your thing. Turns out you are the mythos and reincarnation, whatever. Cool, whatever. Hey, you're Eivor. You're a fucking Ravens clan member. You're not an assassin. Like that's the thing. Like you take and then like with Naue, like in the game I'm playing right now, I don't know where everything's at, but as of right now, I played as Yasuke, who's just a slave, who gets inducted into the main guy's army, and I'm playing as Naue, whose dad, I'm assuming, is a part of the Brotherhood, but we don't know that for sure because all you see is the symbol and the hidden blade, but you don't know anything about the fact that she is a descendant of an assassin. She doesn't know she's an assassin. And we're just kind of like ninja, we're like a little ninja vibe over here going. And that's the problem with everything. It's like we just don't have, it's just like those games aren't assassins. You're not an assassin in those games. You can do assassinations. you can fuck with the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and story, but you're not an assassin like you're over in the first 6 games, which is like you said, fucking just rebrand it, but they can't do that now because they're fucking it's Assassin's Creed. It's like Call of Duty's like, actually, guys, we want to do farming. But it's like we're still Call of
I
Duty,
think
so
many
we have to
people
call
will
ourselves
follow um, FIFA's standpoint of
yeah,
what's it called now? Like EA Club or
FC,
something? FC.
FC
Uh, um,
24.
I believe Call of Duty will go the same way. Um, it'll
Yeah.
be some sort of I believe I read somewhere that the new like evolving platform for the Assassin's Creed game is let me have a look. I've got notes. Um, what's it called? Infinity.
Yeah.
So like if that's a code name for it, it looks like they're heading that way in terms of spider diagram in a way. You have the middle,
Yeah.
and then you just boop, 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 boop. And then
Yeah. And that
I guess the fans would be kind of happy with that if it lowers the price of the games a little bit. That you have
mhm.
like one core that's
Yeah.
reaches out into like a good way of putting it is like if you've ever played God of War, you have like the tree. It's like the
Yeah.
main room, and you could branch off into different
Mhm.
areas. Or they need to like God of War have been very good at this, that they follow Kratos all the way through, and now they've realized the end point in,
Mhm.
was it called Valhalla as well? What's it called?
Yeah.
Ragnarok.
And it's
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and now it's being passed on to Atreus, his son.
Mhm.
A lot of the fans aren't going to like it, but they've realized that the story has taken its due course, and I
Mhm.
think Assassin's Creed need a similar thing. They need to build a story around a character, kill the character off, make a new story around another character. They've got the
Yeah.
foundations there, and they've got the
And
player base that will follow that.
they could and they've done it, and that's the thing. They did it with Ezio, and they never did it since. No other mainline assassin ever got more than one game.
Unless they've
Assassin's
just lost
Creed,
faith in their storytelling.
which I think is what they have, because it's like I would have loved to play a couple games. I would have loved to play a sequel game as Connor going back to England and setting up the Brotherhood in England, which is why he left the life of piracy. I would have loved that side of things. I would have loved seeing Hatham Kenway, his son, seeing that his dad's doing like somewhat like sneaky things, and how he now is like, I don't want to be an assassin. I want to be a Templar now. Like, fuck that. Look what they did to my dad. That would be cool. Like, you don't get that. Like, and again, certain characters don't do. Like, I don't know if I would want to play a sequel as Connor in the sense, like, okay, Connor's the revolution's over. Now he's protecting his homeland. Like, I don't know if I need to see a sequel to playing as Arno or anything like that. But like certain characters, they have so much more with it, which is why Ezio is so beloved in the franchise, because you see Ezio grow up. You see Ezio go from this cocky little 16-year-old Italian who his only care in the world is fucking the next girl, and to now being his family's been murdered. Now he's going out for revenge, and then he realizes revenge isn't the answer. But then he realizes he forgave too easily, and it fucked things up. And now he's like, "Well, I gotta take care of it now. I can't be naive. He has got to grow up and not be naive." The part where now he reaches that peak, and now he's a mentor trying to pave the way for the new creed for the future. And then the beautiful thing about Ezio is like he dies peacefully in Florence. Like, he has a whole story arc, and he's like, "I'm good. I'm happy. I've seen my life," and that's why Ezio is so beloved. And and that's the thing. They don't have that storytelling with other assassins. Like, Edward is so beloved because you see Edward's growth through the game in Assassin's Creed 4. You don't see that with a lot of other protagonists, which, like I said, is the writing side of things as well, where they don't have faith in their characters. And that's a shame, because there's so much potential and so many of these games to have continuations. Like with Valhalla, you could go. They do that, and they do that in the DLC. Don't get me wrong. Well, I never played a lot of the DLC because I was burnt out by the main game. I know a lot of the DLC continues the character story pretty well, to the point where there's like an ending to it. Like, they equivalently are done doing their thing, at least in Odyssey and Valhalla specifically. But that's what always been Assassin's Creed's weakest point. They've never been able to find a more captivating story based character since Ezio, and the only person close to him is Connor. I mean, not Connor, Edward from Assassin's Creed 4, which is why you ask anyone, if you ask any random person on the street who's played Assassin's Creed, they will tell you what this is. These are going to be their top games, their top 3 games. It's really fun. It's really telling. They're going to either say it's Assassin's Creed 2 or any of the Ezio games. It's going to be Assassin's Creed 4 or it's going to be Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is best storytelling, a best game, overarching game character, best gameplay, and then you're not a fucking assassin. And that's the funny thing about Assassin's Creed. They have those 3 top games are so completely different from each other. You got a good story here and good characters. You're a pirate here, but you have good character development, and then here you're just a fucking Spartan warrior, and that's what you are. And it's so telling. And why? And it's crazy to think about because we've been honestly having such a disjointed conversation because it's the games themselves are so disjointed as a
It's hard to
whole,
follow.
which just explains Assassin's Creed as a whole. It's such an overtly complicated game. It has such a really cool lore if you really want to dig into it, but it doesn't need to be this complicated. Like they literally should have just stuck with you're a dude, you go into the Animus, you play out your ancestor memory, you come back, and the next time you go, they're like, oh, we found something else. We got to go back in there again. All right, next
I
thing.
am
Oh, we found
surprised
something.
after the success, the success of the Ezio collection, that they didn't focus down on specific characters, like you said. Like, and then you have the Connor
They should have.
collection, and then you have the whatever collection after that, and then
Yeah.
it's like it allows them to build. I suppose we can wrap this up by saying, if
Yeah.
you had a dream Assassin's Creed
Uh-huh.
game, I know you said that you'd really like India, but is
Mhm.
there like after Shadows, and they take 3 years, and they're going to commit to it? What what do you want to see? Like what era? And then like what type of combat as well? Do you
Yeah.
reckon?
So, I mean, I feel like I'm cheating when I'm saying this, but I touched on it a little bit. My dream Assassin's Creed game, if I could be put in charge of developing the next Assassin's Creed game, I would give it like 3 fucking years. Like I would not come up with a new You're not hearing shit about Assassin's Creed for 3 years. We're going to ancient China. We're going to the building of the Great Wall in the Mongol War. All right, it's gonna be a big open world, and it's gonna focus on really being an assassin because that's the time period where it's said you are a ninja, you're an assassin in China or whatever. You're an assassin, and it's a big open world because it's fucking China. It's a big fucking country, and the main people are going to be the Mongols. But and then there's going to be good story development behind it where you're an assassin right out the gate. You're not like this wishy washy. I'm this guy and this thing has fallen to my lap. No, you're an assassin. You join the Brotherhood, or you're somehow a part of the Brotherhood. Just you're an assassin right out the bat, and your job is to take out the Mongol emperor and stop the invasion of China, and you got to take out different Mongols, gather intel to find the main guy. I'm bringing it back to its roots. I'm bringing it back to a very basic, simple story mission where you are an assassin. Your goal is to do this. Your goal is to stop the invasion because they're killing a lot of innocent people. I would keep the fun side quests in there that have like branching story paths with interesting to introduce cool side characters because again, I love bringing up Ezio and Assassin's Creed 4, but they had a lot of cool side characters in those games. Like you had Blackbeard, and then you had Leonardo da Vinci and Machiavelli, and and Bonnie in Assassin's Creed and Blacklight. You had these cool side characters to introduce these cool side characters. I'm taking away choice. You don't get choices in here. Like your side character choices to have no consequences. Sure, if you want to go kiss the guy you just saved, cool, be my guest. But main story, you don't got no choice. The main story is like you're doing this, and that's how it is. There is no present day. You are just a guy in the Animus, and yes, for the lore lovers, there's going to be some cool mythos that you can see there, but there's not going to be this overarching plot of you are some chosen person. Yes, there's going to be some weird wonky shit that answer questions that have been posed throughout the Assassin's Creed, but that's only going to be there if you know you know. And it's not going to be it's not going to be in your face. And it's not going to be like, oh, if you don't know, you're fucked. It's like if you know, you know, and if you don't know, it's not going to bother you. And there's going to be a clear cut ending, good character development, and it's going to be just as big as Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's going to be a big open world, but it's going to have a straight narrative, good characters, good story development, and no bunch of convoluted bullshit that Assassin's Creed's been doing for the past couple of years. And I'm putting it in China because I think that's a cool time period, and I think it'd be interesting to see them tell a story of in ancient China.
Nice.
And that's how I'd make the
I'd
next.
buy that.
That's awesome. I know you would. I would too.
I
I
would
know a
buy
lot of people would. I
that.
know. But yeah, that's how I would fix Assassin's Creed if I could. And but Jake, I guess like so we'll wrap it up. If you what what would make you buy an Assassin's Creed game? What if you're looking at Assassin's Creed? What do you want out of it
I don't know.
as a consumer?
I
Like if that's
think
like,
the retail and the
mhm,
advertisement of Shadows has intrigued me for the
mhm,
first time in a release. Um, I think I will probably pick up Shadows, and being like completely out of the loop, I'll probably enjoy it a lot.
mhm,
Because I'm not expecting an Assassin's Creed game. I'm just there for the era.
mhm.
Um, if I had to pick something that would like maybe really pique my interest and that could Assassin's Creed could kind of maybe work away from, I would maybe put it in like a mafia style era. Whether that
Okay.
be New York, whether that be in the middle of Italy, you're looking like it's almost close to modern day. Um,
Mhm.
because you could still get the assassin feel, um, because
Yeah.
the whole mafia gangster style is like you're underground, you're working beneath
Mhm.
the government, you're
Yeah.
influencing decisions, you're influencing police officers. It's like you could, and I think Assassin's Creed could kind of do that and tie
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff together and maybe run
Mhm.
you could do like, uh, I don't know, Gangsters Italy and then Gangsters New York, and then there was a
Yeah.
mafia in Britain. It's like they've been everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
you could do the
That'd be
Chinese
cool.
triad. It's like,
Mhm.
and you
Yeah.
could intertwine it all together, and I think that would be a really good like, I suppose spin-off series that would really pique my
It'd be
interest. But I think
fun.
that they've got me at Shadows. It's the first time I've been
Mhm.
almost willing to put money on the table. Will I?
Why
Uh, Go on.
why Shadows? Why what has Shadows done to intrigue you
It's the
versus any other
setting.
game?
It's the setting.
Okay.
It's
Just the
like
setting.
it's just a setting, and I feel like it would pull as a
Okay.
good Assassin's game. Um, when I saw Odyssey, when I saw Valhalla, it's you look at the cover and it's like that's not Assassin to me, but
Yeah.
I could see it based in
For sure.
Japan. Um,
Okay.
so it's
Yeah. Fair.
that's they've nailed the advertising, and I think that they saved this for the rainy day.
Yeah.
This could be the last hurrah, like you say,
Yeah.
because this it, it it seems like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
They've gone through all of this, they've built up, and then people are like, "Come on, guys, just give us something." And it's like, right, this is the big idea, this is the big plot, this is where we were building up to. Have a go.
Yeah.
Whether or not they've implemented the mechanics or anything like that, I don't really care. Um,
Mhm.
but the question is, will it live up to Ghost of Tsushima? Because
Yeah.
the next Ghost game is coming out soon.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like Ghost of Tsushima are going to do it 10 times better because obviously it's their first game and that's their main core story and they're not having to build around stuff. It's
Yeah.
a very, very convoluted era. We've just had Wukong,
Yeah.
which is difficulty based but very story driven.
Mhm.
It's like it's a busy market at the moment, but I feel like they've marketed Shadows pretty well. And it piqued
Yeah.
my interest for the first time in
Yeah.
the series since Black Flag.
Yeah. For sure. And I think that's cool. You definitely. I think yeah. We definitely didn't address the elephant in the room, that being Ghost of Tsushima. Like Ghost of Tsushima, I played the first 6 hours of Ghost of Tsushima, and while it is a fun game, I think I'm enjoying my time with Shadows more because I like the fluidity of it. Because it's like with Ghost of Tsushima, you are just a samurai.
Yeah.
You are engaging in combat with other people. Again, I haven't gotten to play as Yasuke for very long, but like you get to have that choice. But and I think that's the cool thing about Assassin's Creed, which is why I like it. I get the choice. I can engage in combat, or I can choose to be stealthy. And in that game, you are literally a samurai. You're coming up, and you're like, I am challenging you to a duel. Block, block, block. Different stance, change, slash, slash, slash. actual sword combat, which for some people is great. For me, it just didn't grab me. And then I'm already really invested in the Shadows storyline about two hours in. We'll see if they live up to it, the main storyline. I was not invested. I am not and I'm not I was not immediately invested in Ghost of Tsushima story, and I played it 6 hours and there was no clear cut like, oh, we're getting good. It's kind
Yeah.
of like, okay. And so I think it's all dependent on people either say Ghost of Tsushima is great, and I think people think Ghost of Tsushima is great only because it's a samurai game.
Yep.
Like that's
You
it. I
kind of
don't think
get
it's like
you get a leg up
yeah,
already.
I
It's
just
like,
don't. I just don't think it's. I like again. I can only say I haven't played it. Everyone who's played it said praise that's a really great game. It's an amazing game. But for me, it's just like for me, I feel like it just lends itself to they did it. They did a samurai game right, and if you do a game right, it's gonna be a good game because you don't have a competition yet. And I think Shadows could bring a good competition to it. And that also means that the sequels probably would be fucking good for Ghost of Tsushima too, because
yep,
it's now got to compete with Assassin's Creed Shadows in the same year. So definitely comparisons are they're great, but I think they're two different games and they play very differently and they do their storytelling very differently. That I think it will be I think people who didn't like Ghost of Tsushima will like Shadows. And I think
yep,
people who um that love Ghost of Tsushima will also love Shadows for a different reason as well. So I think they're
yep.
just two different types of games. But
It's
yeah,
good for the community because you've got
yeah,
pretty much every
yeah,
type of game that you want now. If you want
yeah,
difficulty, go play Sekiro. Go play
yeah,
Wukong. Um,
yeah.
if you want driven story, go play Ghost. If you want story with a bit of arcadey whack and slash, there you go.
Hmm.
Go play Shadows. It's
Yeah,
like, and they're all like 50, 60, 70 hour games.
yeah.
What more
You
can
got
you ask for in the era?
no. You get to play. You get to play in feudal Japan for 50 hours. Sign me up. So let's go. I'm excited for Assassin's Creed Shadows. I hope it lives up to my
We'll probably
expectations for the
revisit.
game.
If
Oh
I
yeah, we'll
play it and Luke
revisit for
plays,
sure.
we'll probably
Well,
the book club will
yeah,
be alive.
the book club will be alive. It'll be a good time. It'll be a good time. But yeah, I think we've wrapped. We've talked about this convoluted Assassin's Creed stuff for long enough. I think overall, I think our closing points is Assassin's Creed is a very great series who has a lot that has a lot of issues, and they're very wishy washy. And ultimately, if this is the last Assassin's Creed game, which I don't think it will be, but if this is the last hurrah of Ubisoft fronting the Assassin's Creed game. All I ask is whoever picks up Assassin's Creed game, just fucking make it not convoluted and just fucking tell me if I'm an assassin or if I'm not. You can put Assassin's Creed in the title. I don't care. Just from the get go, say you're an assassin or you're not an assassin and just build a story around it. Don't keep trying to add a bunch of shit in there to appease everyone. Just fucking make a good game. I don't care what you put on it. Just fucking make a good game. That's all I ask. Just make a good, not convoluted game. That's all I ask, guys. And remake Assassin's Creed
It's
2. All
easy.
right. All right. Anyways, guys, that has been it. That's going to do us for this week, guys. Thank you guys again for always listening, always tuning in, listening to our opinions, our convoluted takes on a lot of things. But guys, as always, I've been Luke, that's been Jake, and we will see you guys on the next, hopefully less convoluted episode of the Dual Hemisphere Hangout. Bye bye.
Bye bye.